God bless David. It was a pretty farmhouse with old furniture, but neat and tidy. I walked into the kitchen. There was a phone on the wall. I picked up the receiver and dialed Liz. She answered on the first ring. "It's me," I said. My voice shook so much I wasn't sure she'd recognize me. "Marley?" "Yeah." "Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" "I think so." I was dripping water all over a clean white rug. I just about died when Red drove off. He decided to go fishing, I said. "Fishing? Where are you?" "I don't know." I looked around as if I expected to see a street sign in the kitchen. "What happened to the dynamite?" "I left it by the back door of the police station with a note saying I'd found it in the woods. I don't think anyone saw me." "Thank goodness," I sighed. "Where are you?" Liz repeated. She sounded like she was about to cry. "I don't know." I was the one who was lost. There was a pile of mail on the otherwise neat table. I picked up a piece. "I'm at 43 Salamander Road." "Where's that?" asked Liz. "Do you have a map?" She did. "Start at the zoo." When we went left, then right, then straight for a long time. Thank goodness I had paid attention. And finally another right. "I see it," said Liz, "but it's a long road. How will I know where?" I had an idea. I picked up a piece of mail and rummaged in my purse for a pen. It was 3:15. When Red drove off, I knew that because I'd heard the church bells. And it was 3:45 when we arrived. So that was 30 minutes. Red had said the car only went 25 miles per hour, and he was late, so he'd probably been driving that fast the whole way. I made a few notes on the piece of paper. 30 minutes was half of 1 hour, and half of 25 miles was 12.5. God bless math. "I'm about 12 miles down the road," I said. "How? Just find someone to come and get me." "Who?" Liz moaned. My brain felt thick and slow. If I called Mother or Daddy, I'd be going to Pine Bluff for sure, no matter how many pretty speeches Mother made about taking a stand. Maybe David would come. He didn't have a car, but perhaps he could borrow one. "Call my brother," I said, and gave her the number. "Tell him it's an emergency and to please come now." I heard the front door open and steps in the living room. A moment later, a figure appeared in the doorway of the kitchen. "Who are you?" Startled, I hung up the phone. It was an old lady with a faded dress and worn hands. I burst into tears. I swear it wasn't calculated, but apparently it was just the right thing to do. I must have looked pretty pitiful because instead of getting mad, she turned concerned. "It's all right, sweetie," she said. "Just tell me what's wrong." "I got lost in the woods," I mumbled. That much was true. I was fishing with my daddy, and I wandered off, and a fresh batch of tears. I wasn't quite sure if I was acting or not anymore. I knocked, but no one answered, and there, she said. "Calm down." She patted my back like I was a puppy. I slowly stopped crying. "I have a granddaughter your age," she said. "Let me see. Let me go see if I can find you something dry to wear." I was still sniffling, but felt better. Maybe she'd even offer to drive me home. I could call Liz back, and I turned over the piece of paper I'd used to get the address. It was a cross flyer. I stood up and ran. Out the front door and down the street. Ran and ran and ran. I figured out pretty quickly that was a stupid thing to do. It was still raining. It wasn't like being a cross supporter made her a wicked witch who ate children or anything. It wasn't exactly cold, but my skirt was soaked through and my feet were wet. I hate wet shoes. They squish and squash. And 12 miles was a long way to walk in squishy shoes. David probably wouldn't be able to come. No, Liz would have to call my parents, and I'd be in Pine Bluff before I could even say goodbye. Well, at least we had gotten rid of the dynamite, except for the 2 sticks I'd left in the trunk. In my rush to get away from the car, I'd forgotten completely about them. All this had been for nothing. Red still had some dynamite, and I'd lost the nicest birthday present I'd ever received from my mother. Probably the last present I'd ever get once she found out what I'd done. I went on like that, feeling sorry for myself, till I saw a car coming down the road. I thought about jumping in the woods to hide, but frankly, I was just too tired. As it came closer, the car slowed down. I could see a young man behind the wheel grinning at me. "Hey, Marley," David said as he rolled up beside me. "Fancy meeting you here." "Thanks for coming," I said. "Course I'd come," said David. "You're my sister." I got in the car and we started home. "Try not to get mud on the seat," said David. "I had to borrow the car from my professor." I peeled off my wet shoes and socks, and a wave of relief swept over me. Like wet feet had been the worst of my problems. "So," said David. "So," I repeated. "How about a deal?" he said. "I won't tell Mother and Daddy if you tell me the whole story." "Okay," I said, and started talking. David was a good listener. He didn't interrupt once, but I could tell he was upset because by the time I got to the end, his trademark grin was nowhere in sight. "Geez Louise, Marley," he said when I was done. "What were you thinking?" "You promised not to tell," I reminded him. "I did," sighed David. "But you've got to promise me never to do anything like that again." "Gladly," I said. He shook his head. It's always the quiet ones who are the craziest. But he was grinning again, and I knew he was teasing. I leaned up against him like I used to do when I was 4 and he was 10, and he was reading me a book. And even though I was worried about what was going to happen next, I felt happier than I had for a long time.